Hi YouTube, Suka here with some more thoughts for you. Today I would like to debunk Professor Jiang, one of the theorists that I actually most respect, who says that the US will lose. So first off, while I do respect Professor Jiang, please do remember that he works for China, so he would like the US to actually lose this war. And the only way the US will actually do that is if the American public loses faith in the US and forces the US to pull back. So, what are his main arguments? Number one, that the math doesn't work out for the US. And this is the main argument for pretty much everyone. So, essentially, the US and Israel is spending too many missiles, interceptors, THAADs, and whatnot, to fight the incoming drones. Some of those are cheap drones, some of those are ballistic missiles, some of those are cruise missiles. Basically, everything that Iran can throw. So the standard math that's given out is that the U.S. spends like 1 million per shot, and that Iran spends like 50,000, 100,000 per shot. So first things first, let me just ask everyone here: do you think that's anything new? So let's forget about Iran and U.S. first. Take yourself back to medieval times. How much do you think it costs a blacksmith to produce one sword? And how much do you think it costs a blacksmith to produce one full set of armor? Which one do you think costs more? Do you think that since it costs a blacksmith cheaper to produce a sword, you should send your entire army just with swords and I guess their clothes against a fully armored army? You know you'll lose, right? So the reason I'm saying this is that this calculation is not unique to anyone. It's been that way till the beginning of time. It's always been harder to defend. That's why defense is not meant to be a permanent thing. Defense is meant to be a temporary thing while you beat your opponent. For example, take the knight for example. Does the knight just stick around for the peasant to keep stabbing him in the guts? No, right? The peasant will try to stab the knight. He'll get one or two shots off, and the knight will smash him down with his sword. So the thing there is to remember is that you actually buy the armor because you're protecting something. So in that instance, in that simple equation, you're protecting the trained knight who you invested years in combat techniques, in jousting or whatever. You spend all that time training an armored warrior, whereas the peasant is more expendable. Now in this case, you have the drone fired upon like a THAAD battery or an oil refinery, and you're protecting the oil refinery, which actually costs billions. So your 100 million investment or your 1 million investment is protecting 100 billion worth of infrastructure. Now, in that case, it is true that if that was the only equation, the U.S. would still lose, because again, that's the missiles would just keep coming. And that's actually why Ukraine is in such a difficult spot. Because for the longest time, they weren't allowed to strike back into Russia. And all they could do was defend against the missiles. But now, they're being allowed to strike into Russia, so they're doing better. In our case, is the US not going to do anything while all these missiles are coming in? We're already carpet bombing Iran. We're already destroying every every launcher we can find. You already have the Kurds, probably the Azeris, and probably the Pakistanis coming in different areas. So, suffice to say, the space where the Iranians can shoot out of is growing smaller and smaller, and we're destroying more and more, which means their capability to launch stuff will get less and less. Now, at this point, you'll probably ask that, okay, we can take into account that the U.S. is shooting drones, shooting down missiles, and the U.S. is trying to destroy the opposing launchers, but the Iranians will still last longer than the U.S. in that kind of fight. That is a valid argument. But let me just ask you, what does it actually take for an Iranian commander or a crew to fire a missile? Like, like there's probably some sort of like maybe 5-man squad or something firing a drone or firing a missile, right? So keep in mind, like how does that 5-man drone operate? All right, first off, let's say they're hidden in the mountains, because pretty much that's where you're gonna hide. How are you going to pay these guys? I'm fully aware that the IRGC has a lot of money hidden abroad, or in various different companies. How is that money going to go from the hands of the IRGC, uh, let's say command, to the IRGC fighters? If you're working here, if you're employed, you probably just have a debit card. Every so often, your employer loads that debit card with your pay, and you're done. Or maybe your checking account, that they load your checking account with your pay. So if it were that easy, then we wouldn't have to talk about anything. But remember, the Iranians turned off the internet, so there is no banking right now. Then, in addition to that, all the physical banks have been, most of the physical banks have been destroyed. And it's not like those banks will be open even if they're not destroyed under bombardment. Most people have been sent home already. Number two, remember that the value of one Iranian rial is 1.5 million to $1, or I think it's 1.6 million now. So you can't actually give banknotes to the IRGC soldiers, because it would require you to bring to bring like a wheelbarrow truck of banknotes everywhere you go just to pay them. Next, once they get, of course, at this point, you'll tell me that the IRGC soldiers don't need money. They're very religious, etc., etc. I will say though that even the most committed soldiers, like the communists in the Spanish Revolution, they went to the other side when they weren't paid. So, but yeah, let's say that let's go with your argument that despite no pay, the Iranians can last. So, you have no pay. Number one, number two, if you have no pay, how are you going to get your extra supplies? Because you still need stuff aside from food and all that other stuff, right? How are you going to purchase it from the their surrounding villages and stuff? Assuming that there's still surrounding villages there and that they haven't been bombed out. So next, how are you going to get your food? Now, at this point, you'll probably tell me the IRGC has underground cities, etc., etc. How are you going to get food to the underground cities and from the underground cities to the fighters? Remember that U.S. has total air superiority now, which means that if you send in a convoy of trucks, or even a convoy of anything, that will be spotted and blown up. Remember Russia, one of the early months of the war, sent like a 3 kilometer long convoy of vehicles to Kiev to finally crush it. They were destroyed by drones and all that other stuff. That's even without air superiority. With air superiority, nothing will be left alive. So essentially, your mujahideen that's hidden in the hills will have no replenishment of drones. They'll have no replenishment of food, and they'll have no replenishment of cash for other supplies. So who are they going to turn to? They're going to turn to raiding your civilians in order to get some stuff, cash and supplies. Now, at that point, I have to tell you that the civilians are not going to support you anymore if you raid them for cash. Now, let's say that you can still get replacement for your drones. Because remember, drones are the only material that matters here. Small arms and all that stuff, well, you're never going to use them against the US. All you're going to use them for is killing protesters. Because there's no troops on the ground. So, you don't, you're in a situation like Berlin was at the end of World War II. There are no supplies coming in. There's no iron coming in. There's no zinc coming in. There's no electronics coming in. There's nothing coming in. There's no motors coming in. You have what you have, and that's what you have to win. So, in essence, you're saying that the entire industrial output of the U.S. will not be able to match what the Iranians can produce in their little cities underground, without any fresh material material input. Okay, so that's number one. So that's like the main problem. Number two, you have the problem of insurgencies. You already have the Kurds saying that they'll come in. Number two, you already have Azerbaijan, whose army is on the border. They're saying it's to prevent refugees, but they can easily move in. Number three, you have Pakistan saying that they can that since Saudi Arabia is being attacked, they have a mutual defense pact with Saudi Arabia, so they're going to get involved if Saudi Arabia continues to get attacked. Okay, so you have these three things. Um, Remember that any mass convoy of vehicles will not be able to get through. They will die. So, as big as Iran is, you have to go on foot from one end to another, or you have to go in single cars from one end to another. So you're never gonna be able to mass enforce. So the troops, whether they be Azerbaijani, whether they be Pakistani, whether they be Kurd, will be able to hold their little villages. Like I'm guessing Pakistanis want Baluch to add to Baluchistan. I'm guessing the Azeri want north and west Azerbaijan, as well as other north and east Azerbaijan, as well as some other provinces next to it. I'm guessing the Kurds want the provinces to the east of Turkey, at which point they'll probably join up with the Azerbaijanis to come under their protection. So you have all these groups coming in, and you can't fight them because you're never gonna be able to mass the forces you need to get to kill them, and they're not gonna exactly go to Tehran because they're perfectly happy holding their little enclaves and leaving the recipe to fight because they've already gotten the parts of Iran that they want. So you'll have to fight the U.S. in a smaller and smaller area, while the U.S. still has air supply and everything. Number in addition to all of that, Tehran is already suffering from shortages of food and water, so it's not like they're well prepared for this. Okay, so that's argument number one. That's the ballistic missile argument or the supply argument. Number two, oil. So, Professor Jiang says that this will destroy the oil of the Arab states, which is what the U.S. dollar is based off on. Okay, so let's discuss oil. There's two separate things here. There's oil and the U.S. dollar. Let's discuss the oil first. The supply destruction is around 20 million barrels of oil per day. Okay. So, Japan already says that they have 9 months of oil left. So they're the worst impacted. South Korea has more than that. China is the next worst impacted after Japan in terms of percentage of oil delivered. And China has 1 billion barrels of oil in reserve. So they can last for years, even if you remove the oil from Iran. America has 700 to 800 million barrels of oil in reserve. About the only one that's gonna get hit hard is the Europeans, um, and this has to last for around 6, 7, 8 months before they'll actually feel the pinch. Because number one, oil in the rest of the world is still coming through. Number two, some small amounts of oil is still getting transferred to the Red Sea. And number three, all the countries have their own little reserves of oil. That means if this only lasts for a month or two, they can just pick up without missing a beat. All right, so that's the argument of oil. Number three, the argument of the dollar. So he says that since Iran will destroy everything in the Middle East, there's no the petro states will not be able to insist anymore that everybody buy using the dollar, and the U.S. Economy will collapse. So let me just ask first, what is the reason why people go to the dollar? Is it because is it because of oil? Is it because Uh, because if it's just because of oil, then you can go to other countries to buy oil. You can go to China, you can go to Venezuela before, you can go to other countries. And if you're only trading in oil, then the U.S. dollar would not be the world reserve. It's only gonna be the world reserve for oil. It's not gonna be the world reserve for computers, for chips, for everything else. Now, why do you do oil? Why do you go to the US dollar? Number one, because it's the most stable currency in the world. Why is it stable? Number 1.A, I guess. There's no currency manipulation like in China. In China, they try to lower the valuation of their currency to promote their exports. Nothing like that happens in the U.S. Number two, um, the property laws and everything in the U.S. is well established. So you know that if your money's there, it's protected by law, which is why all these actions of thinking about seizing Russia's assets or something like that is not really done because they know that that will destroy the faith and the full faith of the countries in the U.S. system. So there are some instances where the U.S. does use the reserve currency status for benefits, but it's not enough for the the fate of the world to get shaken because there's no secondary currency. So, for example, everyone's been saying for the longest time that uh, the U.S. dollar, the world is about to de-dollarize, but the only currency, the only metal they can point to people going to is gold. They can't point to anything. Not bricks, not the yuan, not the uh I don't know the rupee, not the rupee, not the euro. It's all going to the dollar because the dollar is still the preferred currency. All right, next. Um, Professor Jiang says that once the defenses of the U.S. is worn down, Iran can destroy the water supply of Saudi Arabia and the other countries like that, and it will force them to leave. Okay, so we already discussed why I don't think the Iranians will outlast the Americans when it comes to bombs. Okay, so we'll go with that argument first. Next, if the Iranians want to play that way, the Americans can too. The moment you start destroying the water supply of Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia and America will destroy the water supplies of Iran as well. Iran is much more vulnerable to Saudi Arabia to having its water supplies destroyed. And Saudi Arabia can still be supplied for a time from Israel, from other friendly countries nearby, while nobody will supply Iran with anything. Iran, if that happens, Iran will get destroyed. And incidentally, to everyone here thinking the U.S. is a terrorist state, if the U.S. was a terrorist state, the first thing we'd do is destroy the water supplies of Iran and be done with this. They wouldn't even be able to fight back. But no, we don't do that. Okay. Um, those are the points of Professor Jiang. So essentially, number one, uh, the missiles, the missile math. Number two, oil. Number three, the the destruction of the various facilities in Saudi Arabia. Now he says that also U.S. will be forced to put troops on the ground. I don't actually discount being forced to put troops on the ground. Let's see. At this point, usually people bring up Trump's promises, no new wars and stuff like that. What did Trump exactly promise? Did Trump promise no new wars, period? Or did he promise no new forever wars? Because one of the things that Trump is really allergic to is forever wars. Like the entire. Remember when we changed the name of Department of Defense to the Department of War? The entire reason that name changed is because it changed the ethos of how we fought war. War is supposed to be a temporary status. So the Department of War is only there for a temporary time, and then it goes back to civilian status. But the Department of Defense is there forever because you're forced to keep fighting these forever wars. So the point being is that you go in, you get out, you complete your objective, which in this case is a compliant Iran, and then you leave, finished. You don't repair the damage, you don't do anything else. Now, the Department of Defense would repair the damage, they would stay there, they would protect the new Iran. So, so the promise was not no new wars, it's no new forever wars. Now, the promise was also not no troops on the ground. It's no mass troops on the ground. Remember that Trump picked up Maduro. Uh, there were troops on the ground there, maybe for 2 hours. Americans didn't mind it. Why? Because number one, it was a quick mission. Number two, it was a successful mission. And number three, the costs vastly outweighed the benefits vastly outweighed the costs. You got Maduro, you turned an entire government to your side, and it didn't really cost much. So in this case, they're leaving option to themselves to run special ops. Like for example, God forbid the Iranians shoot a pilot, you might need to rescue him, or the Kurds might need an ammo drop or something like that. You might need to give it to them. So there's lots of instances why you might need boots on the ground, but it will be limited boots on the ground. It will be like squad or company level boots. Now, you might think, what? Why am I so certain that it won't be mass boots on the ground like Desert Storm or Operation Enduring Freedom? So, number one, the forces equipped there, the carriers, they're not really equipped to carry 200,000 troops. You would need lots of transport for that. Number two, most importantly, I don't think you can find 200 Americans willing to fight Iran in on the ground. Air Force fine, Navy fine, but I don't think you can find 200,000 infantrymen that will willingly go to Iran. So even if the U.S. wanted to, it couldn't do it unless we do a mass draft, which no one will follow. Okay, so for all those reasons, I think the U.S. will win. The only thing stopping the U.S. from winning is resolve, as usual, because that's the only thing always stopping the U.S. So just keep the faith, stop listening to charlatans, and make sure that you logically debunked what they say before falling for it. This is Suke, thanking you for joining me today, and
The
I will see you
stocks
for the
in
next
Asia
one.
of the United States are likely to have to be cannibalized.
Ugh.